much for being here. I'm so excited for this reading, and I've had the opportunity to see Natalie read a few times, and it is a very special treat. So I'm excited to see this evening again. My name is Rob Arnold. I'm the executive director here at Poets House. And one of the things that I do here is, I advocate for the art of poetry. I think a lot about which is the mission of the organization, is to advocate for the art of poetry. And have people been here before? Clap if you've been here before. Okay, now maybe do jazz hands if you haven't been here before. Okay, so quite a few jazz hands. Too many jazz hands. So I hope that you'll have an opportunity to go upstairs and check out the library upstairs. We are open to the public. We're free and open space. It is it's one of those third kind of spaces where you can come and show up. You don't have to buy anything. All the books, we have 80,000 books of poetry upstairs. They are free and available to you. You do have to read them here, so make sure you have enough time. But it's here for you. It's like free co-working for writers. So I advocate for the art of poetry here. We all do that work here. And I think about poetry writing and what a radical act it is to write something on a piece of paper and say, my voice matters, that this story that I have to say about my life matters, or the story to say about somebody else's life or a concept matters. Hi, Monica. It's radical, and it's also radical to receive that story as a reader or as an audience member. So I just want to thank you all for bringing that to this space. It's a really beautiful thing you're doing here. The other thing I do here is I talk about fundraising. I ask for money, and that's because we need the support of our community. We're built on the support of our community. So I just want to highlight a couple opportunities if you are a person with the means to support the work that we're doing here. So one is we do have a fishbowl out at the front desk. We also have books for sale. So I hope you'll buy those books, which will support not just Poets House, but it will support the poets who are reading here tonight. We also have a really cool partnership with Emily Pizza in Clinton Hill. Does everybody know this place? Really wonderful pizza place, and if you they made a poet's pizza for us. It's called The Poet, and if you buy that pizza, you will support Poets House. We will get some share of the proceeds. We don't know exactly how much, and you can also order for takeout. So that's very low cost, and you get to feed yourself as a result. And feeding poetry is very important. On the 24th of this month, we also have a little dinner that they're hosting for us, and we do have a few tickets available. Not very many, but a few. So if you're interested in joining us, you can buy tickets on our website, or you can ask one of our front desk friends for support there, and they will show you how to buy a ticket for that. We have also a raffle for some pretty cool prizes. Monica Yoon has agreed to do a manuscript consultation. I think Cornelius Eady has also agreed to do something like that for us. So check it out. You don't have to be at the dinner to win the raffle. So and those tickets are $30. So pretty great cost for a manuscript consultation, if you ask me. And then finally, on the 10th of October, we have a boat ride that we're doing, a poetry cruise on the Hudson, which is going to feature the poems of Rumi and the translation Water by Haile Liza Ghaffori. Haile's going to be performing and reading from that collection that she translated. It's beautiful. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be musical, and tickets are also available on our website. Okay, so we have our marching orders. Go to the Poets House website, go upstairs, give your jazz hands, read some poetry, and please join me in welcoming my colleague, Subin, who's going to be our host for the rest of the evening. Subin?
Hello, welcome to Poets House. My name is Subin, and I'm excited to welcome you to this special event. For those of you who may be new to the space, Poets House is a nonprofit poetry library that is free and open to the public. Our 80,000 volume library is one of the most comprehensive public poetry collections in the world. Poets House also holds exhibitions, special collections, and public programming, such as our reading series. Our New Work series celebrates recently released poetry collections. We're here today to celebrate new collections from Courtney Bush, Emily Skillings, Kimberly Alidio, and Natalie Shapero. Courtney Bush is the author of a movie, a book-length poem that explores the way movies are woven into the fabric of life. Emily Skillings is the author of Tantrums in Air, published by The Song Cave, of which Maggie Milner wrote, is a collection of poems careening between a high femme camp performance, paranormal incantation, and sparkling dispatches from a mind mid-thought. Kimberly Alidio is the author of Traceable Relation, a collection of linked essays and poems concerned with the vitality of art and writing in the wake of grief. Natalie Shapero is the author of the poetry collection Stay Dead, which examines performance, power, comedy, and despair through the lenses of method acting and abstract expressionism. We will have readings from each poet, followed by a few minutes for audience Q&A if time allows. After the reading, we're going to have a reception in here, and books are available for sale in the lobby. Join me in welcoming Courtney Bush, who is a poet and filmmaker. She is the author of the National Poetry Series selection I Love Information, along with other full-length poetry collections. Every book is about the same thing, a movie, and the forthcoming The Lamb with the Talking Scroll. She works in childcare and teaches poetry workshops, sometimes about Rilke through cool memories.
Thanks, Subin. I'm so scared of mic stands. But I don't need to be. I'm going to read from my book, A Movie, which was published by Lavender Ink, this publisher out of New Orleans, in January. And it's a long poem, so I'm just going to kind of read around in it. As I waited in the dark theater for The Secret Life of Pets 2 to begin, my arm brushed against the soft forearm of the woman beside me. The 7th floor theater at Regal Court Street was packed on the hottest day of Brooklyn summer. My edible kicked in during the first trailer. I traced a heart in the sweat on my large Diet Coke. I watched a famous actor stutter on screen in 19th century New York, trying to make his way in the new world, which would be hard enough without the speech impediment. I watched a supercut of the man as he gained confidence in public speaking at the hand of a mentor. This was a popular subgenre of movie at the time. A man in the past tries to lose his stutter. It was simply Edward Norton's turn. Old-fashioned gas lamps, Coney Island in CGI, the score built in meaning, more gold blended into the color grade with each passing frame. Can you believe it used to look like this? It seemed to ask. No, because it didn't. The woman beside me, swallowed for a moment in the darkness between trailers, said with calm disgust, they just wanted to make a movie. From my mother, I learned a new way of watching movies that I've come to call the kaleidoscopic method. As an adult, the way I most often spend time with my mother when I visit her quiet house on a block of Biloxi, Mississippi, that has been otherwise abandoned since Hurricane Katrina, is by watching movies together in her bed from morning to night. Sometimes I nestle my head under her arm and rest my head against her breast while we watch. Often she sleeps and I'm the only one watching. Because she falls asleep so easily and because she truly does want to watch the movie, when she wakes up, she decides whether she wants to just keep watching from wherever it is or if she wants to rewind the movie so she can piece it together. It often goes like this. Start a movie, watch for a while, fall asleep for a while, watch some more. After a while, go back to the beginning because though you've tried, you can't figure out what's going on with this one character. Did someone die? You start the movie over, but after a while, this time after having seen a bit more of the movie from the beginning, you fall asleep and sleep for much longer. This time you wake up as the movie is resolving and the characters are on their way to finding peace, perhaps. Still feeling like you haven't really seen the movie, because though it's now noon and you started this viewing just after breakfast, and though you've seen a lot of the movie in a strange order, you really haven't quite seen it yet. This time you start in the middle. You see parts of the movie you've never seen before. Inevitably, you fall asleep. You wake up later, you ask your daughter some questions and understand for a while, but something happens. You need clarity. So you rewind it a bit, watch a bit. This could go on forever if you wanted, which is one of the many beauties of kaleidoscopic movie watching. This winter, we watched Misery, starring Kathy Bates and James Caan, in this fashion. While we watched, I tried to keep track of my mother's experience of the film. For her, James Caan's injuries came and went. The car wreck that incited the plot had happened and then had not yet happened. He finished the novel, smoked his cigarette, and had his champagne. Shortly thereafter, he had not yet begun writing. After his ankles were hobbled by the woman who held him hostage, he met the woman, his ankles intact and healthy. The woman was alive, she was dead, she was alive. My mom said, "I thought she died." "She did, but later," I replied. She nodded and kept watching. She did die, but later. In this way, my mother experiences narrative time in new and interesting ways. I want to make a movie about an occult baseball coach speaking Latin in the dugout to a writhing snake. His players say in their Southern and Midwestern accents that they have no idea how he got the job, but he's a pretty great coach. I want to make an Odyssey movie that is mostly men saying goodbye to their wives. I asked a friend I ran into at a poetry reading how he was doing. He said, "I'm living the dream." I said that was great to hear and asked him what the dream he was living was like. He just told me what movies he had been watching. Bergman Island, Irma Vep. I once made a movie with my friends in a house near the beach. We had never before made a movie. I left my horrible boyfriend in the city and for 4 days underwent the insanely stressful process of making a movie. We were young. We acted in the movie ourselves because we didn't know where to find actors. We drank real wine in the movie, so everyone got drunk. We didn't know you're supposed to use fake wine. We learned you can make a movie about nighttime during the day. We covered all the windows of a friend's beach house with a thick black plastic called Visqueen, and it became night inside. We learned you can even make a movie about nighttime during the day while you're pretty drunk. We were drinking real wine and lit the rug on fire when we didn't notice a fallen light. The wine teeth we needed for the movie were our real teeth stained with real wine. We didn't know about fake wine teeth. Milo's favorite time of day is the 20 minutes after he takes a bath and before he has to go to bed, because in those 20 minutes, he gets to watch part of a movie. He lives for those 20 minutes. Once he chose to skip a pool party because it meant he would get home too late to have 20 minutes of a movie. Every day I pick Milo up from school in Morningside Heights, I know he will want to hear a story for the bus ride back to his apartment. So on the train from Brooklyn, I start trying to think of a new one for that day. For a long time, I told stories I made up myself about characters I had created. A version of the Candyman who steals people's candy at Halloween, who is addicted to candy, but whose deepest, darkest secret is that he's actually really nice. I found myself getting anxious on those train rides, creating stories, wondering if one day the stories would run out or if I couldn't go on like this forever. And then even worse, what if one day my stories weren't good enough? I remember in elementary school when I was learning about the principles of narrative, a teacher said something so scary. There are only 2 types of stories. Someone comes or someone leaves. It occurred to me that I could solve this problem by simply telling Milo the plot of whatever movie I had most recently watched. The most recent movie I had watched that day was Suspiria. I figured there was a way to tell Milo the movie Suspiria without traumatizing him, even though he's 4 years old. I told him there was a girl named Susie Banyan in Ohio who loved nothing more than dancing. She was a strong and powerful dancer who was drawn to one school of dance, the Marcos Dance Academy in Berlin. She ran away from home to join that company, traveling very far over the ocean, arriving in a strange city in a rainstorm. She banged her fists on the door of the dancers' dormitory until an old dance teacher appeared to let her in from the cold, driving rain. I told him, of course, there was something strange about this teacher, about all of the teachers, about this school of dance. That just before Susie arrived, there had been a dancer who ran away and begged for help from a doctor, who of course would not believe a word she said. That the teachers were witches, that the dances were their spells, and on and on. I found the only thing I had to change was that the dancers in the end were turned into frogs instead of killed and bloodied. Milo became so obsessed with this story, we had to start acting it out every single day. We made his baby brother play the worst witch, the one who couldn't leave the basement. He said, "Can I watch this movie?" I said, "Yes, but not now." "When?" he asked. "I need to watch this movie." "One day you can watch every movie," I said. "That will be the best day," he said. Then I told him the creature from the Black Lagoon. One day when I got to work, he said, "I make movies too, it's my job. Do you want to come to my movie theater?" Milo had never been to a movie theater because of the pandemic. He held up a little Halloween toy shaped like a phone, which made different Halloween sounds when you press the buttons. He said, "This is my phone. I show each person one at a time my movies here on my phone. Go get in line and I'll take your ticket." I stood in line outside his bedroom door. He walked over, pretending to be flustered. "Oh, hi, yeah, welcome, we're almost ready." He paused for just a second. "Now we're ready, you can go sit on the bed." I sat down on his bed and he pushed me down until I was lying on my back. He tucked me in with his blankets. "So this is how it works. I show you my movie on my phone," he explained cheerfully. He held the Halloween toy 2 inches from my eyes. "I think it's too close," I said. "No, this is how it is," he said. Then he began murmuring disjointed words and making strange sounds. I looked at him instinctively. "No, look at the movie. It's the movie." I sat looking at the Halloween toy, my vision blurry from trying to focus on something so close to my face while Milo made quiet sounds by my ear. When one movie ended, he asked if I wanted to see another. Of course I did. He showed me several movies, and every time I accidentally looked at his face, which was intensely focused on what he was doing, he gently told me, "No, watch the movie." I laid there looking at the Halloween toy, which was feeling more and more like a phone, the imaginary movie seeming more and more real, thinking about this version of showing movies. How Milo had imagined a movie theater and had assumed it was such an intimate experience. Later, during quiet time, I went back to his movie theater at his request. This time the line was much longer. He had to show several other pretend people his movies. I waited at the door while he pretended to show people several films. He told me when it was finally my turn that he was a little frustrated by how popular his movies had become. "There are so many people now. It used to be just me and you." For Thanksgiving that year, my mom came to town. So she, Jake, Will, and I made spaghetti and meatballs and cherry crumble. Our friend Jessa came over with homemade arancini. We ate weed gummies and then smoked so much actual weed that we could barely move from our seats on Will's couch. Somehow, by an act of God, I think, we realized we all wanted to watch Shrek. My mom said she had never seen Shrek. I screamed like a woman in a horror movie. How was that possible? We put it on. Watching Shrek on this night was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. I remember staring at the beautiful faces of my friends as they watched, wide-eyed and mouths open in unself-conscious joy, the gingerbread man and Lord Farquaad do the Muffin Man scene we had seen so many times as children. I realized the donkey from Shrek has the most loving and pure personality. I sat on the floor in awe of the donkey from Shrek and his attitude toward life itself. Shrek sadly says, "Everyone is afraid of me when they meet me." Donkey says, "Shrek, I wasn't afraid of you." Shrek says, "I know, Donkey, I know." I had tears in my eyes. I had felt what Shrek was feeling. I put my hand on Jake's leg and said, "I want to watch Shrek with you in the nursing home when we're old." "I can't wait to do that with you," he said, not looking at me, but staring at the screen. I had a disposable camera in my purse. I put the flash on and looked through the viewfinder at the TV. I waited for a close-up of Shrek. Shrek emerged from between some vines in the woods. I took a flash photo of the TV screen and yelped, "Everyone has to try this. It feels like you are really taking a picture of Shrek." We passed the camera around between us, literally screaming in ecstasy every time someone would take another flash photo of Shrek. The person who took the photo would scream, "It's real." I'm walking up to Shrek and taking a flash photo of him. I've never been so happy. When I got the film developed, of course, all you can see is the flash reflecting off the TV screen. Of the 6 photos we took of Shrek, in only 2 of them can you vaguely see Shrek's face, and only if you're looking for it. I gave the photos to Will for his birthday. I made pasta with peas and squash and cream and ate it quickly. I walked to BAM at 6:30 to see a movie because I love the main actress who was also in It Follows, a movie I love. I wanted to see a serial killer movie directed by a woman. As I walked, I talked to my mom about how I wasn't sure I wanted to make movies anymore, but when I sat down with my Diet Coke alone in the 6th row and the screen lit up, I felt the way I always feel when the screen lights up. The bright life is what Dante called life outside of the inferno, the life he left behind. I always think a movie is the bright life, and I always want to make a movie. Thank you for having me. This is great.
It is my pleasure to introduce Emily Skillings, who is the author of the poetry collections Fort Knot, Tantrums in Air, both published by the Song Cave. Her recent poems can be found in Poetry, Harper's, the Yale Review, and the New York Review of Books. Skillings is the editor of Parallel Movement of the Hands, 5 unfinished longer works by John Ashbery, which was published by HarperCollins in 2021. She is a member of the Belladona Collaborative, a feminist poetry collective, small press, and event series.
Of you. That was fantastic and so funny. I was looking to see if I had any movie poems, and I don't, which I think is really weird because I also love movies. I'm going to start with this poem called The Duke's Forest because I taught a class here a long time ago called Gleaning. I think it was on intertextuality. And we watched The Gleaners and we did lots of quotation. And afterwards, I wrote this poem, which uses a lot of quotation, and it quotes in it a student from that class. This poem, Daniel Calderwood. He's a fantastic poet. And I forgot to credit him in the notes of my book, and I'm feeling so guilty about it. So this is my way of saying sorry, and hi, Daniel, and I love your poem. So it makes me think of Poets House. A lot of this book is dealing with reckoning with reading men and loving reading men, but also feeling kind of weird about it, reading the work of men and quoting them. The Duke's Forest, and it starts with an epigraph from John Ashbery. What more is there to do except stay, and that we cannot do? John Ashbery, The Instruction Manual. I love nature. Wait, I'm going to say one more thing. Once I told a friend that I started a poem, I love nature, and he was like, you cannot start a poem, I love nature. I love nature, but I think it awakens in me intensely boring thoughts that in the moment seem deep ravines, and when revisited later, have lost the light and dark greens, the wet wood and expansiveness. See, there I go, sniffling. I'm an American in Germany at the edge of a public forest. Today, families were out walking. The phrase, taking my constitutional, something I've never said aloud, kept waving its little kerchief in me. I walked 4 miles alone, feeling very pleased with myself. I wish a sweater could come in that shade of neon moss, I thought at one point before entering a clearing to gasp at a primal energy that indoors now seems silly and evacuated. In the Duke's Forest, I find myself listing names of plants it has omitted. The morning refreshingly flowerless, no lady slippers, oxlip, wood sorrel, no violets or ghost orchids. I could go on. I go on. This is why I love James Schuyler. He doesn't care that, quote, the plants against the light which shines in is a dull observation, or that, quote, trees and trees, more trees, is just the layered visual experience we all have in the forest, waiting to let ourselves take in the sign to turn back, go home, and really hate someone. Most days I say as close to bed as possible, even in my mind. I trust my brain when she's indoors and can bounce the materials that seem to float toward and away steadily in equal measure, creating a kind of scrim of thought over the body, off the surfaces of a room, mirrors, chairs, passages from books, the objects that ask me daily to love them. They soak in my attention and return it as color. Out in the woods, there is a refreshing smell of decay. Today, I saw 9 pussies in the trees. One was forest art carved by someone I felt I'd already met. It held a wooden jewel or egg inside it, the size of a football, which I manipulated hesitantly with my hand. The other 8 were naturally occurring. On my little walk, I scratched my asshole vigorously right in front of a German family. Mama, Papa, 2 kids, 2 little white dogs. This gave me great energy. I broke off the path of the Hutwald to access a large termite-ridden tree, climbing into its opening, leaning back like you might do on a long bus ride. The feeling is gone. There was a weak and clotted stream just beyond, and beyond that a tree had fallen, broken in half. The trunk still firmly rooted many years ago and was carved to look like the top of the base and the bottom of the top half are interlocking, a single chain link connecting the two. It's actually hard to describe what this looks like, this cloven looming thing, the smart wicked from me, mind of wild dirt holes. Perhaps you will see something better, wood embracing at the wound of separation. In Paris, I bought you The Morning of the Poem at that tourist trap bookstore because you'd previously expressed your skepticism regarding my devotion to it, as you tend to question the value of things I love. You became drunk and silly on it, the opposite of my intended effect, began buying yourself cut flowers and placing them in the window to take their picture. It seems you are now quoting extensively from one of my favorite works of American poetry in a long poem you are writing to another woman. My student just wrote a brilliant and impossible poem in which the forest extends to include and contain everything, so that a forest becomes indefinable, a catch-all, a container for experience, detritus, and life. He writes, quote, "And when I say forest, I do not exclude," end quote, then seemingly lists everything that has ever existed in the physical world, beginning with spaces like highways, medians, estuaries, meadows, parking lots, drainage ditches, clearings, and continuing on towards sprawling lists of garbage, thoughts, feelings, piss-sprayed shorts, the lost objects of an entire national consciousness. I'm so jealous of this poem, but the thing about being outside, you can't really stay there. It's getting a little late and the panic light is seeping in at the edges. I'm in the dark of a library with slightly bacterial wallpaper, reading men I love. When I say that, I do not exclude you. It had been so long, though it hurts, blasts me repeatedly, unendingly. I want to go back home, a feeling with many thresholds, with many names, so that when he writes, night slams gently down, I am not my own way. I am far from my own ways. This poem is called Reading, and it's a true story. Reading hasn't always come easy to me. And I wanted to record that somehow. She'd always, the student, underlined in her books, dog-eared the pages. It was as if without these markings, she couldn't understand what was written, couldn't feel the words alive in her mind. The blue-black liquid corralled as it dried the text into something concentrated, something a bit her own, a garden drying in the sun, wrung out, pressed by the sky's knowing. This was as much a part of reading as seeing. She brought to each book her small void, bouquet of nothing, a vase-shaped cut glass lac, and would stuff it up with passages, themselves tunnels elsewhere. The rest of the book, it seemed, could disappear, and she would still possess some part of it. Was this another book altogether, she thought? Her book? At night, on special occasions she could not induce at will, the words would turn color, a red insulated by a thin border of spring green, and hover slightly off the page, as if the paper had released its hold, was handing the words over to her. They seemed, these letters, to tremble, Christmas gelatin. She'd shake her head to exaggerate this phenomenon, a private dance, a direct communication from the writer, or even better, from the secret soul inside the book that all books possessed. More probable, she knew, something was wrong with her eyes. They were reading The Scarlet Letter, and Ms. Russell, her 10th grade teacher, pulled her aside after a failed quiz. When something important happens on the page, she said, choose a word or phrase that corresponds and write it at the top so you remember. The student began with chapter 10. Torture, she wrote in the black and yellowing space on page 117. Appearances and reality, 129. She has removed the sin from herself. Rebellion returning, 160. Limbo again, 174. Pearl wants the letter back, 192. What did he whisper? 201. And then simply seeing, 206. This went on forever. Well into adulthood, she wondered if these words were the right ones. Sometimes a hole would appear, moving its blurry center wherever she hauled her eyes. Words slipped over the edge, withdrawing to a forest where she could not follow. I'm going to end by reading this little sonnet sequence that's in the middle of the book. It's the title poem. I titled the book, and then I was like, fuck, I really want a title poem. I didn't have a poem titled that. And so instead of writing just a poem like a normal person, I was like, I have to write a crown of sonnets. But one of them just has 14 words in it, so some of them are little. And I wrote it in my 3rd trimester, so a lot of it is pregnancy stuff. Tantrums in air. Blue, blue rains of the sun, lashed out in licks, hot and cold as voice poured through wire. A word flails, then loses grip. What would it take to reach you in this still air in which I ride on my black wood horse? I could die here in my poem, just to give it a try. Boom, guilt-free, as they say. Is it perennial or perineum? And was she astonished, Lady Time with her nautilus head cradling a glass raspberry? Anesthesia, such a pretty name for a girl. Sometimes you flop over like a fat carp inside me, or circle as a finger over a laminated menu, the broccoli rabe with chili and lemon. I pre-mourn my selfish time, my water hours. I take a small dictation from you, sucking in and out, lots of beautiful fluid, the ultrasound tech says to the beeping space around my body. Went to see her play the long string instrument. Somehow it wasn't as long as I'd hoped. She walked on a track between wires, pinching delicately the lines between her fingers. She changed direction so the sound would never end. I found myself watching her feet most of all, their tentative crossing. Most lines everywhere too short, like this one. I didn't write it. It was already there. They were widowed images, color pulled from sleep, the cloud like a vampire imp sucking his long fingers. Yes, I want to protect my experience, recommended. Is that where the light went? Attention shoved into a small box. Violences crept out slowly at first, then flooded each sinus. Nothing conceivable. The gray faces of the dead, the land. No, I don't want my experience protected. This poem, I looked up the first use of the word tantrum, and I have to like look up what this is, but it had this like weird, like non-etymology. First recorded use of the word tantrum in 1714 in a letter from E. Verney. So, and this was the first time it was used. Burst of ill humor. Our Lady has had some of her tantrums as vapors coming out, etc. Two hands, one then the other, fall onto stretched skin of drum. Be gone, be gone. Hate it here, says Zach. Want to go home. A tall spike of grass makes a scream, green shot high into air. In storm stirring, a tremor in my runt eye, tears ripped out like tansy flowers. Took so long to write a book. It's embarrassing. The middle, how it stretches on, how it smells desperate. Are your fingers in the margin, writes Lynn Hagenian in the middle of a passage in my life. And the first time I read that, I gasped because, of course, they were. Lie down gently, your weary stalks. Is it lay or is it lie? Remind me. I lie myself at the feet of my Savior, lay here on the cold slab of... I lied. I never lay with him, but he did touch me upright, laying his fingers on my clammy cheek. Lay eyes to the page. The words lie here. The words lay down in. Are these the green pastures everyone's been talking about? Now I lay me. Lie, lady, lie, lie across my weeping lineage. I lay here afraid of what will come. Pink sky laying her droplets, just lying around. You'll never learn that way. Lay down, down on your white belly. Allie turns to me. Emily, sometimes I think I was hungry in the womb. The carrot flower, or Queen Anne's lace, is everywhere this summer. I love it when they are as large and white as a china saucer. The period in the middle, a little centering gesture. A sip of dark, a hole into which slips all the sky's embroidery. The field, the side of the road, the shrill path, all show me the commonness of my form. Before the pedestals flatten, they make a fist around whatever's coming. Today, a broken nail, a sink drain, a warning. How could I know what I desire? I desire myself, or possibly a pink curtain I can pull back. Behind it is a small bouquet. Inside the blooms, their alien musk, sits a microphone clipped to the lapel of a small god. They ask me a question. They take it all down. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here tonight. We have such a stacked lineup. Our next reader is Kimberly Alidio, who is the author of Traceable Relation and Teeter, which won the Nightboat Poetry Prize and the Lambda Literary Award. She is the author of 3 other books of poetry, Why Letter Ellipses, Once Teeth, Bones, Coral, and After Projects, The Resound. Her essays appear in e-flux, Poetry Foundation, Social Text, American Quarterly, and Filipino Studies, Palimpsests of the Nation and Diaspora.
I was lucky, I think, in 2025, 2 beautiful objects that I was involved in making. One of them is my book, but the other I'm going to read from, which is this pamphlet from 1080 Press, which is 8 months of conversation and work with Rebecca Teisch, who's already here. I'm going to read from part of it. This is Rebecca's part. I'm going to hold it up because it's so beautiful. The structuring logic of what surrounds us is oriented towards expansionism, growth, progress, the monumental and the durative, increasing returns and markets. So it's not that these things are failures for not enduring, but rather it is what surrounds them that is the failure, that is also always trying to seduce them into becoming a monument or spaces that produce monumentality. This is a moment when maybe the actual good life is to inhabit the contradiction of simultaneous possibility and partiality all at the same time, rather than retreat into silence at the daunting risks and jagged edges of the task of utterance. To risk, refuse, struggle against this world order in and through our entanglements, to entangle in ways that strengthen our resolve and abilities to risk, refuse, and struggle. And if you would like these, we have them for sale. I wanted to open with that because I think the relationship between writing and life is a risky one. And there are films in this one. Traceable Relation. Footsteps amplify silent attention and restore me by proxy to everyday life. After the film's halfway point, marked by song, Cleo walks down 10 steps, crosses a courtyard, and exits narrative time onto Rue Huijon. I'm permitted to enter the scene as one of any number of bystanders whose faces begin enunciating an observation just as the camera sweeps away to keep time with the unseen beats of Cleo's stride. A sentence evaporates into a light trace of its arc, down a creaky stairway, through a dimly lit foyer, out into a yard prominently featuring a cast iron bathtub. This far from ideal architecture presents opportunities for improvisation. On cue, we behave as if in a time of sacred ones gathered into a grammar of queer conduct. Dedication to beauty is a romantic occupation. The courage to know which conjunction is most beautiful here and there in a shadow language. Agnes Varda isn't afraid. Mr. Button, later seen in an episode of From Here to There, takes a tray of plain matchboxes, chooses one to empty out wooden matches into a jar labeled with a current year. Agnes Varda shows us 4 jars, each labeled by year and partially filled with half-burned matches. The sentence isn't an etching in the way a poem line inscribes and interrupts a surface. Mom is Miss Liberty, 3rd place in the Miss Malasiki pageant, aged 14. Transactional, placemaking, translingual, instinctive, provisional, carnivalesque. When thrown aloft in carnivals, Jordan almonds link confetti to confect, something candied, salted, rendered in its own fat. Her voiceover says the thing's name in a flat tone. Any flat surface that becomes an installation makes you aware of the image's dimensions. Agnes Varda's life-size cardboard placard is a placeholder placed in space. Her mirror doubles as an image and an in-between zone of light, perception, and affirmation. What breaks finally gives us a break from holding and makes a bridge. I have 2 summer households, 2 sets of languages, and 2 distant cities. A disfluency of care and accompaniment. One morning, my mother's sadness permeates me from 600 miles away. Grief summons all moments across time at once, all terms engulfed without improvising. I go beyond the top layers of everything I think and know into fated cultural guts of ritual accompaniment. Traceable Relation. Afternoon. A rectangle of hot sunlight appears on the facing wall. The room takes shape. A ribbon of pink survey tape signs rapidly in the wind to me in a house, but only if I sit on the rightmost edge of the sofa. An indefinite article at once universalizes an object experience and strips it of narrative significance. I learn of Sofia Bodanovich's work the same afternoon I photograph and video a glowing rectangle on the northeast corner of the living room, where it rhymes with the darkened shape of the pellet stove eye. just because I share them on social media with a sound on, so voiceover from point and line to plane plays in the background of both the room and video, these images get a title. I stood in front of his painting, composition number 6. There my eyes and ears transformed the slightest vibrations into impressive experiences. Voices arose from all sides, and the world began to ring. I stood very still and closed my eyes. I said, if you can hear me, answer me with the sound of color. I want to know what form you chose to be. I opened my eyes and saw. I'm not a video artist, so the act of titling surprises me. Dread poem. To make a poem must be to risk something. I quote LaBelle, except he says party. And such reply only emerges anticipating your reading, the beauty and power of knowing how unstable this is. I entered the Shrine show in the overseas outpost of the Manila Art Gallery on a day trip to the city in the greater dank archipelago of the unseen, to see Anading's street portraits of people angling, hand mirrors to make light burst in front of their faces, body and ecology in a style of conjunction, as Lucy says, of fiction's periscope. Serial moments, 5 transparencies and light boxes, solar flare, captives, a narrative of a day. Such care with error. To repair the form with visual lags, frozen strobe lights, visual time of a narrative still. Tenny, who speaks too fast, says in seminar something about the poem and the novel taking turns stealing from one another as less and more sovereign. He reads Dickinson's Walking Bird as a decomposed set of operations, testing both nature and machine, in cinematic sequence, left to right, power dashes. This data system is me, my relative, my estranged self, says the speaker or the poem, speaking a color photo of me in hot springs on the slope of Mount Makiling, teenaged face among 5 improvising mouths, monstering raucous girl law, gang hazing my gigantic diasporic body, which I plunge giddily into crisis. Strange words turning me strange and stranger girls into my lolas, crashers plus randos on the scene. Room tone. Tonight I'm sitting in a room I've been sitting in off and on for 44 years. I am sensing the rise and fall of meaning in matter, what takes shape, how a sign and its meaning take shape together, how meaning can be alive, which means I'm alive in this life of structures and rooms. The ever slight impression we see less and less of everything in the late afternoon's natural light, as does room tone, entering a pause in conversation or activity. The ordinary and uncanny switch places as they are wont to do. There is so much presence and material constituted by an absence that's somehow full, like a container. Through the open door and down the hallway, I hear a text-to-speech voice, American English, female, along with my mother's Filipino English, female, reciting a text on the widescreen TV. My mother prays a novena by following a YouTube video. In my room, I view on my laptop the 2nd hour of a sound art piece featuring a repetitive sequence of recorded speech. The litanies are simultaneous and adjacent. I listen to both rooms because I know when the novena is finished, I will kiss my mother goodnight. Traceable relation. The voiceover starts his life as writing, a piece of writing that becomes a script for a speech, recorded for playback via earbuds to prompt the performance on video, which becomes the voiceover. Moira Davies' essay is the script, and reading it doesn't prepare me for the halting speech rhythms, the pacing figure, nor the afternoon light on photographs tacked onto apartment walls. It doesn't remind me I'd seen the video before reading the script as a chapter in a book of essays. The photographs are the same, but the days are different. For 2 years, I photograph sunspots in the room of my apartment. I take one this morning and think, I want to share the view from where I sit. I want to measure distance. I want to be in space where the light forms circles, columns, and waves. I move to a house where light forms rectangles that shimmer. Mythic aura, artisanal and reproduced, brink of death, pink cloud, who but the dead know what it is to live, to create a center, a kind of city, out of work and relations, from provinces where infrastructure is fringe and fringe is hinterland, and hinterland has been refuge or forest, wild, invaded, and thus shadow, feared, and therefore infiltrated, militarized, and so fanatical. Unreconstructed, bordered, trans everything, tracked by metrics of high-pressure systems of extraction, mineral, human, animal, aesthetic, which is not metropole and not city and yet metropole. Fugitive chasers, the forces of imagination, crossing a range of writing. So there's the dawn sky from the elevated train, wrapped inside and out with a repeating Marc Jacobs logo. That you can enter a conversation you'd already been having, dwelling every day on what might be before the surface and before the settlement, along the edges of a field, not exactly on a street or in a cafe or in the seminar, but before a vapor. To test one's power to harm and survive with greige raw silk as guerrilla armor. Pure language, in scare quotes. Sealed into a post-funeral cordon, we hunker down around the rites of mahjong. Such delicate, small sounds in a classical rhythm of chopped-up sustains. Sit hierarchically around the table like a gun runner, instinctively get aunt's water. Open halfway into a transmaterial realm of relations. One has traversed, so the rest gather close to commute the gap. Some men conspire with waiters to prank. The answer to why is a granddad who dies shortly after I'm born. Amateurs in life with the dead, a code before the facts of time. So as to write film, write painting, write what it means to see, writes Tisa Bryant. Vessel in which events deposit innumerable traces in passing, surface area for history's imprinting, a critical elaboration of the parenting chaos is an impossible inventory of infinitude. A tuber discard pile, a painting, and soup. Portraits of people in front of their portraits, people stepping out from behind their portraits, and people showing their livingness, ephemeral conditions before the portrait, before capture, after grab, all kinds of marks. Thank you.
Our final reader is Natalie Shapero, who I was told just got longlisted for the National Book Award. Natalie Shapero's writing has appeared in The New Yorker, The New York Times Magazine, The London Review of Books, The Paris Review, The Nation, and elsewhere. She is the author of the poetry collections Stay Dead, Popular Longing, Hard Child, and No Object, and she has performed at the Pulitzer Arts Foundation, the Poetry Project at St. Mark's. She lives in Los Angeles and teaches writing at UC Irvine.
Hello. Thanks so much to Poets House for having me, and such an honor to read with these brilliant poets, and thanks everyone for coming. This poem is called Spacewalk. Big deal, the solar system is replete with rubble left over from its formation. Join the club. All my circulating garbage and nowhere for it to go. I used to talk stuff out with the dead, but now I can't even do that anymore. They stopped understanding my references. They failed to intuit tone. We are witnessing an unprecedented divide between this life and after. They only want to be with their own. I'd drown myself, but unfortunately, I can't find the ocean. Though it seems like just a minute ago it was right here with its bread knife fish and its putty knife fish and all its landed capsules down from space. Travelers, welcome home. I heard they give each astronaut a pill to end it all up there, if needed, if the spacewalk turns out bleakest. Look around. You know what I want to know. Do they get to keep it? This poem is called Oh Boo-Hoo. 5 years on a research study to unearth why former conscripts wouldn't talk about the war. It turned out to be because nobody wanted to hear it. Have I told you I like your flashlight? Your trusty 1 gallon of water per person per day on the bottom shelf? It's honestly cute that you think you know what's coming. Have I told you about when I died and came back and everyone begged me to please stay dead? It wasn't, they promised me, personal. They'd just gone all out on the funeral, and they didn't want all that money to be for nothing. Capacity crowd. I'm sick of waiting for this city to work me out of itself like a splinter. I'm sick of producing my own subsistence as a way to literally express my being alive. I'm sorry to have died and not really noticed, but I've been so busy loving what you're wearing and pouring my paint right into the dip in the street that drains to the sea. I never saw myself represented in art until that movie where the one guy was fed to the wood chipper. Bye. I was so proud, I cried. And this reading has a little trivia component. I'll give you some candy if you answer the question correctly. What film is referenced in that last poem? Oh, yeah, there it goes. Black on dark sienna on purple. I do enjoy beholding the rectilinear pictorial output of abstract expressionist Marcus Yakovlevich Rothkowitz at the Museum of Contemporary Art in downtown Los Angeles, where the wall text provides not only the artist's places of birth, but also their places of death. Giacometti in Switzerland, Arakawa in Manhattan. We play a game where we try to guess how everyone died based on where they died. Chris Burden in Topanga Canyon. Whenever you die in a canyon in Southern California, it kind of sounds like you got murdered, but also maybe die anywhere, and it kind of sounds like you got murdered. Even or especially a studio on East 69th Street, Hedda Stern, born Hedwig Lindenberg in 1910, responded to news of Rothko's death. Who was this man, Mark Rothko, who killed my friend? This next poem is called Big Mistake, Big Huge. A line from what movie? Pretty Woman. Oh, yeah. Mark Rothko was just too trusting when he announced, I'm interested only in expressing basic human emotions, tragedy, ecstasy, doom, and so on. Personally, I couldn't begin to fill in what the other ones are. Is one of them the feeling of overly enjoying the joke, what's red and smells like blue paint? Red paint. Is one of them not being able to remember which director it was who said regarding violence in his movies, that's not blood, that's red? Is one of them returning from the dead? Strolling back into the world, I felt like the movies. Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman, decked out and making her beeline for the boutique that declined to serve her. Big mistake. Big. Huge. The mulberry silk, the gold brocade. Is one of them, they could have had it made. Who was it? Who said that's not blood, that's red? I'll give you a candy just for a guess. What? That's a good guess. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. My aim is terrible. I'll give you a candy for. No, I won't. I'm sorry. That's a great guess. Very candy worthy guess. No, it's Godard. Okay. Fox. I tried the pills. They didn't help me sleep, but that was no big deal. I'll sleep when I'm dead. And they also didn't bring relief, but what can you do? I'll be relieved when I'm dead. I stayed in bed or sunned in the drive like some kind of studio head side piece. I got into watching these clips where women online showcased the clothes they wore or the food they ate in a given day. The best account was the one where the videos often concluded with "obviously." And I paired this with my round rattan crossbody bag, obviously. For dessert, I had 2 peaches, obviously. I decided, a fur coat. Everyone was surprised. It didn't seem like me, but I was trying whatever I could in case it kept me from dying. I was trying not to die. I'll die when I'm dead. The coat was from the 60s and unmaintained. It cost me $45 plus shipping and tax. I wore it a lot. The fur was falling off. I rented a car and drove in the coat and then received a bill for disobeying the rule against pets in the car. The bill was $200. The fur was everywhere. The coat was from the 60s and it cost me $45 plus $200 plus shipping and tax. And it might have kept me from dying. In which case it cost me $45 plus $200 plus shipping and tax plus rent plus food plus internet plus gas times 12, then times however many more years I would end up alive. The most expensive coat in history. Sometimes people ask me what it was. I didn't even begin to know how to know. Rabbits get killed for coats, also chinchillas. It could have been a fox. It could have been a mink coat. Obviously. This poem is called That Endless Skyway, a line from what iconic American song? Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. I'll give you another one. That was, okay, yeah, we're improving. That Endless Skyway. Look, I'm not going to apologize for grasping your hand in greeting and in that moment gaining access to all your memories or your most profound moments of shame. It's a superpower I have from having died and then having survived my own death. Let's not make a big deal. I do, of course, receive the intermittent objection that it's not fair, but look, what is? Is it fair that 77% of the habitat of U.S. coastal redwoods is under private ownership? Is it fair that Woody Guthrie had to find out about the death of his mom by receiving in the mail a check for $1.50, the remaining funds in her hospital canteen account? Is it fair that I, after being left for dead, at last knew how the snow felt, trapped inside and not mopped up, melting, floored? Is that fair to the snow? That it no longer lays claim to the exclusive experience of that feeling, the very last thing the snow once had to itself? You don't hear the snow complaining. You don't hear its hexagonal whine. There's no, I want to feel Natalie's feelings. It's only fair if she's going to get to feel mine. My snow impression. I tune my body and my brain to the music of the land. A line from what song? It's a tough one. Do you know that song? Does anyone know it? Do you know that song, Inch by Inch, Row by Row, Gonna Make My Garden Grow? It's actually it's an amazing song. Just for being here. Yeah. It's actually, it's like a very interesting verse where it rhymes with the time is close at hand, but it's like, what time? I tune my body and my brain to the music of the land. An important part of becoming any actor is showing up to a room full of people who look more or less like you, all auditioning for the same bit part. I guess some people find this threatening and or a source of destabilization, but for me, my everyday activities already leave me so threatened and destabilized that it's hard to imagine a throng of lookalikes making that much of a dent. Asked why he didn't paint from nature, Jackson Pollock responded, I am nature. Asked why I don't live in an admittedly flawed utopian experiment in which work is substituted for property as the basis of social belonging, I say, I am an admittedly flawed utopian experiment in which work is substituted for property as the basis of social belonging. I spend all day reading magazine columns and spitting back my own stories. My most embarrassing moment would have to be a tie between when I forged the painting #1 Lavender Mist using 5 separate pigments not available until years after Pollock's death. And that time I strutted through the neighborhood assuming nobody but me could tell I was dead when actually half the street was texting each other. She thinks we don't notice. Eye roll. I want to be a better person, divest from bad habits. I also want to just hop in the hedge and hide from it all like the third most surrendered domestic animal. Rabbits. And I'm just going to close it up here with one more poem. Thanks to everyone for coming, and if you want candy, come see me after the event. Sorry to eat. Sorry to eat and run, but I'm just in this enormous rush to die so I can haunt you. I really have to get moving. I'm actually quite behind. My error was assuming I was already dead and so could begin straight away. I take full blame. I thought I remembered being drawn up and out of myself and into the cosmos, but in fact I was thinking of the time my boss dropped her keys down a grate and we had to call the city to retrieve them with a magnet. It turns out about half the incidents I once believed to be my own memories are really just things that happened to those keys. I recall so much unlocking, and so few human scenes, such as scrubbing a cake pan or tendering a letter or sitting in mourning for the melting of the ice caps while also respecting their apparent decision to concretize their interior pain through visible self-destruction. Don't think I don't know what you're doing, choosing this place, the most crowded planet, to give me the brush off, assuming I won't make a scene. Don't think I won't scream. Thank you.